The NHL Trade Deadline has come and gone. The Capitals do make a move. Joining me is Senior Vice President and General Manager Chris Patrick to talk about a trade for Mr. Beauvillier. What was behind that trade? What did you see in him that was something that you thought you needed to do?
Yeah, I think when we looked at different things we could do this deadline, I think this was one of the paths we could take, is add a guy that can probably ideally go into your bottom six, but really can move around your lineup, and Anthony definitely checks those boxes. He's a guy that gets around the ice really well. He can complement good players. He's pretty versatile, can play both sides, right wing, left wing, and can play both special teams if needed, and also has some good playoff experience with some history with some pretty good playoff success. So we're hoping that he comes in, fits in well with the group, and maybe can recapture some of that.
Earlier in the year, wasn't he playing with Lars Eller in Pittsburgh?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely did a little background checking on him, and Lars had played with him for a couple of games, and so we were able to get some inside information from Lars on that as well, he liked playing with him.
So Lars get a little scouting bonus then on this for you?
Yeah, I don't know if the scouting bonus plays as well as just his regular bonus, so he might not want it.
Were there other things you were thinking of?
I mean, we explored kind of, I think going into it, there was kind of three paths we could go. You could try to do more of a hockey deal for a guy with term. We looked at a couple of those and didn't get far enough down the road. And then you could do the higher end rental. We got in on a couple of those as well and made some progress on them. But at the end of the day, I think with a lot of the deals, we have a really, really good prospect pool, and so the other teams go right to the top of our list, and then even if they go down 3, number 4, number 5, there's still guys that we just don't think are worth giving up for a rental. So that became kind of a gating factor for us. And then the third strategy is kind of what we did with Anthony.
I was going to ask you about the prospects, because obviously this is a time now where the Capital prospect pool is very, very deep. Does that kind of reinforce what you kind of maybe already thought you knew about them, that other teams think highly of them as well?
Yeah, it's definitely nice. I mean, I think it gives you a good sense which guys teams are asking about, who's kind of, where other teams have guys and how good your pool is. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely helped. And it also made it, for this year, for sure, I think we're a little more willing to, if we have to give a first-round pick, we can do it because we've got some good guys here. We got, the cupboards are pretty full right now, and again with the second-round pick as well. I think we're comfortable with what we have coming in the next couple of years from our prospect pool, that it's okay giving up on a second-round pick for this year.
One of the other things you said before this trade deadline was not disrupting what has been an outstanding chemistry for this team is also important. Where did that kind of come into all of your decisions?
Yeah, it was probably the biggest factor in all the decisions is how does this impact the room? Do we have to take a guy out to make a deal happen, and how will that impact things? So it was a huge thing for us, and I think with Anthony especially, we got really good feedback on just who he is as a person and a teammate and how he is in the room, and always a great sign is after you do the deal and it kind of makes its rounds through the league, a couple people in the league text you and say, "Oh, I had him. He's unbelievable. You're gonna love him. Great guy." All caps, stuff like that. It's great to see. So I think I'm really happy with what we were able to do with hopefully not causing disruption in the chemistry.
You have been involved in many other trade deadlines, but this is your first as the general manager. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's way different than I expected it to be. It was, obviously really, really nice having Mac there to kind of guide me through it as well, and we kind of worked in tandem on it, which was good. But yeah, it was. I think a little different that when you're making the calls, you're kind of dialed in on where everything is and what's going on. When you're kind of getting the updates in the room, it's always like, what did they want for that pick again? And so it felt like you're definitely totally dialed into the process, and so that part was good. But yeah, definitely I think learned a lot in the process this time around, and yeah, excited for the next one.
Did it also help that you had already made a deal with Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh for Lars Eller earlier in the season?
Yeah, I told Kyle today when we signed off on this Beauvillier deal, I said this has to be the record for most consecutive deals, or most deals between a Pittsburgh and Washington GM, and he got a pretty good chuckle out of it. But yeah, that definitely helped. Kyle's really good to deal with. He's really straightforward. You can pretty much trust when he tells you what he's getting and what it takes to get a deal done, that he's telling the truth. And so it went really smoothly. And Yeah, he's a good guy to deal with. Yeah.
Before I let you go, what was your reaction to what else went on? Because there may not have been the volume of trades that we've seen in the past, but man, were there some unbelievable names and teams taking home run swings, particularly out in the West.
Yeah, well, definitely glad to see it happening on the West. Yeah, it was like the prices were high this year. I think you had probably 2 or 3 teams that instead of being sellers were like, we're just going to kind of hold, or we're even going to maybe add a little bit because we might maybe able to make a push and make the playoffs here. So that put a lot of buying pressure on the market and increased prices. And yeah, you had to basically, if you wanted to participate, you had to be comfortable paying higher prices, and we were comfortable paying the higher price in this case for sure.
Yeah. Chris, I know it's been a long day. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Definitely. Thanks a lot.